Contact in 5, 4, 3. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the bridge as our fleet held position at the edge of the Orion Arm. The massive alien armada ahead of us had finally stopped their advance, their crystalline ships glinting like stars against the backdrop of space. After centuries of running from what they called the Ancient Ones, they'd stumbled into our corner of the galaxy seeking refuge. We'd watched their initial approach with a mixture of awe and concern. Their technology was beautiful, ships that seemed to grow and heal themselves, weapons that could bend gravity itself. But there was something off about their desperate flight, about the way they spoke of these mysterious pursuers with such terror. The first contact was tense. Their leaders, beings of pure energy contained within intricate crystalline forms, had practically begged for sanctuary. They spoke of a force so ancient and powerful that their civilization had spent millennia trying to escape its reach. The irony was, they'd fled right into our backyard. I remember standing in that first diplomatic meeting, watching their ambassadors' crystalline form pulse with colors as they shared their story. They spoke of ruins scattered across galaxies, of civilizations turned to dust, of an unstoppable force that had hunted them across the cosmic void. All the while, our human delegation sat quietly, exchanging knowing looks. 2-1. Establishing communication, Admiral Chen announced, and the view screen flickered to life. The alien ambassador's form shimmered, their voice carrying that familiar musical tone we'd grown accustomed to over the past weeks. Humans of Earth, they're almost here. Our sensors detect their void gates forming. Please, you must help us hide. That's when Captain Sarah Thompson stepped forward, her weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the alien transmission. Ambassador, there's something we need to tell you about these ancient ones you're running from. She pulled up an image on the main display, a star map dating back 3 million years. We've known about them for quite some time. The ambassador's crystalline form flickered in confusion. Impossible. Their civilization predates all known species. They're the first ones, the elder race that. No, Thompson interrupted gently. They're not. She brought up another image, this one showing Earth, but not the Earth we know today. It showed our planet as it was 5 million years ago when our ancestors first looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. The ambassador's form went still, their colors fading to a pale blue as realization began to dawn. But that would mean. We didn't always look like this, Thompson continued, gesturing to herself. We didn't always have this form, these cities, this technology. We evolved, we changed, we spread across the stars in ways your people never imagined possible. Those ruins you found, the ones that terrified you so much. She paused, letting the weight of history settle in the silence. They're ours. Our first steps into the cosmos. The bridge fell silent as the ambassador's colors shifted rapidly, processing this revelation. Through the view screen, we could see their fleet's formation wavering, the perfect crystalline alignment breaking down as the truth spread through their ranks. They weren't running from some ancient, unknowable force. They had been running from us, or rather, from what we used to be. And now, as the void gates began to form behind their fleet, as the ships of the so-called Ancient Ones prepared to emerge, we all faced a choice. Would we stand with these refugees who had feared us for so long? Or would we let the past repeat itself, allowing old grudges and ancient misunderstandings to define our future? The answer to that question would change everything. But first, we had some explaining to do about humanity's very, very long history among the stars. Captain Thompson's next words were drowned out by the deafening hum of the void gates activating. The swirling portals of dark energy ripped through space, their edges crackling with ancient power. Our power, though few remembered how to wield it anymore. Through the massive view screen, we watched as the first ships emerged, their obsidian surfaces absorbing starlight like hungry shadows. The crystalline fleet before us trembled, their perfect formation breaking further as panic spread through their ranks. But what they saw as terrifying hunters, I saw as a mirror into our past. Those black ships with their organic curves and impossible geometries were remnants of humanity's first great diaspora among the stars. Your people called them the Wanderers, Thompson continued, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the bridge. We called them the pioneers. They were the first wave of human expansion, back when we were still experimenting with different forms of existence. She brought up another historical image, this one showing the transformation process our ancestors underwent to survive deep space. They chose to become something different. The ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with confusion. But they're not like you. They're something else entirely. That's what 5 million years of separate evolution looks like, Admiral Chen added, stepping forward to stand beside Thompson. While we chose to remain largely unchanged, they adapted to the void itself. They became what they needed to be to push deeper into the unknown. Through the view screen, we could see the Wanderer ships taking up attack positions. They moved with that unsettling grace that had terrorized the crystalline beings for so long, their forms seeming to bend reality around them. They were human consciousness wrapped in living ships, thought given form in the vacuum of space. And they were angry. The ambassador's colors shifted to a deep purple of distress. If what you say is true, why did they hunt us? Why did they destroy so many of our colonies? Thompson's expression darkened. Because you were doing exactly what they were created to prevent. She pulled up one final image, a scan of the crystalline being's core worlds. Your civilization's rapid expansion was following the exact pattern that nearly destroyed Earth eons ago. Unchecked growth, consuming resources without understanding their true cost, leaving dead zones in your wake. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Wanderers hadn't been hunting the crystalline beings out of malice. They'd been hurting them, pushing them away from the paths that would lead to catastrophe, pushing them, ultimately, toward us. But now we have a choice to make, Thompson said, turning back to the ambassador. The Wanderers are our past. We are humanity's present. Together, we could help shape your people's future. She gestured to the frightened fleet before us. Your technology, combined with our experience and their wisdom, we could create something new, something better. The void gates pulsed again, and more Wanderer ships emerged. They were surrounding the crystalline fleet now, but they hadn't attacked. They were waiting, watching. I realized with a start that this wasn't just a first contact situation anymore. It was a family reunion millions of years in the making. The ambassador's form flickered rapidly, processing everything they'd learned. If we are to trust you, to trust them, we need to understand. Show us who you really are. Show us how humanity became the species that seeded the stars. Thompson smiled, but there was weight behind it, the weight of 5 million years of human history, of choices made and paths not taken. That, she said, is quite a story, and it begins with a question our ancestors asked themselves. What are we willing to become to ensure life itself survives? As Thompson began to explain, the main display erupted with a cascade of warnings. The void gates were widening, their dark energy signatures growing exponentially. What emerged next made even the seasoned bridge crew gasp. These weren't ships. They were entire structures, massive geometric forms that dwarfed both our fleet and the crystalline armada. The Orcs, Admiral Chen whispered, a mix of awe and recognition in his voice. These colossal structures were humanity's oldest libraries, repositories of knowledge that had witnessed our species' first stumbling steps into the cosmos. They were also, I realized with a jolt, responding to a signal none of us had sent. The ambassador's crystalline form began resonating at a frequency that made the bridge's instruments crackle. Those patterns, they said, their voice trembling. We've seen them before, in the oldest ruins we discovered. We thought they were warnings, but their colors shifted to a deep gold of revelation. They were instructions, weren't they? A path laid out for us to follow. Thompson nodded slowly. 5 million years ago, humanity faced a choice. We could remain as we were and risk stagnation, or we could diversify, become a species of species, each adapted to different corners of the cosmos. The Wanderers were just the first branch of that decision. The massive arc of structures began to position themselves in a perfect geometric pattern around both fleets. From their surfaces, streams of data began to flow, visible light carrying millions of years of human history. We saw the first colonies, the early experiments with human consciousness, the decision to split our species into multiple evolutionary paths. And through it all, we saw the pattern, the grand design that our ancestors had set in motion. Your people didn't stumble into our corner of the galaxy by accident, Admiral Chen said, his eyes fixed on the mesmerizing display. The Wanderers weren't herding you away from danger. They were guiding you here. To us. To this moment. Suddenly, the Wanderer ships began to move, their black surfaces rippling like liquid night. But instead of attacking, they started to merge with the arc of structures, creating a vast network of interconnected forms that surrounded both fleets. It was a display of power unlike anything I'd ever seen, but it wasn't meant to intimidate. It was meant to illuminate. We are the original elder species, Thompson continued, her voice carrying the weight of millions of years, not because we were here first, but because we chose to become something more than just another civilization racing toward its own end. We became guardians, guides, shepherds of life itself. The ambassador's form pulsed rapidly as understanding dawned. The ruins, the artifacts, the ancient warnings, they were all part of a test. You were watching, waiting to see if we would learn. Not just learn, Thompson corrected. Evolve, change, grow beyond the patterns that lead to destruction. She stepped closer to the view screen, her expression both stern and compassionate. Now you have a choice to make, the same choice humanity faced 5 million years ago, and your answer will determine not just your future, but the future of all life in this sector of the galaxy. The arc of structures pulsed with blinding light, and in that moment we all saw it, the true scope of humanity's grand design, the real reason why our ancestors had split our species into so many different forms. But as the light faded, as the truth of our purpose hung in the void between us, a new signal began broadcasting from deep space. Something else was coming, something that would force both humanity's scattered children and these crystalline beings to make their choice far sooner than anyone had planned. The real test was about to begin. The signal cut through space like a scream, making both human and crystalline sensors overload. Through the chaos of failing systems and emergency protocols, I saw Thompson and Chen exchange a look I'd never seen before, pure, undiluted fear. The arc of structures responded immediately, their ancient systems projecting a massive holographic display that filled the space between our fleets. That's impossible, Chen breathed, staring at the data streaming across our screens. They weren't supposed to return for another 1,000 years. The image showed something massive approaching from the galactic core, not ships or structures, but a wave of pure energy that consumed everything in its path. Space itself seemed to warp and fold around it. The great filter, Thompson whispered, and the ambassador's crystalline form dimmed in recognition of those words. The real reason humanity divided itself, the true purpose of the Wanderers and the Archives. She turned to face the view screen, her voice carrying an urgency I'd never heard before. What's approaching isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's the universe's way of testing species, of ensuring only those who truly understand the fabric of existence can survive. The holographic display zoomed out, showing the wave's path through the galaxy. Behind it lay thousands of dead systems, their stars reduced to cold, dark husks. Ahead of it was us, all of us, humanity's scattered children, the crystalline beings, and countless other civilizations that had yet to make their choice. Our ancestors saw this coming, Chen explained, his hands flying over the control panels. They knew that no single form of life, no single approach to existence, would be enough to survive it. That's why they didn't just evolve. They diversified. The Wanderers, the Archive Keepers, baseline humanity, were all pieces of a puzzle 5 million years in the making. The ambassador's form began to pulse with a new frequency, one that resonated with the Archive structures themselves. The ruins we found, the tests we faced, you were preparing us, all of us, not just to survive, but to transcend, Thompson finished. But we're out of time. The wave is approaching centuries ahead of schedule, and we're not ready. None of us are. The holographic display showed the wave accelerating, defying every model and prediction our ancestors had left us. It would reach our position in less than 6 hours. Suddenly, the Wanderer ships began to change. their black surfaces fractured, revealing something beneath, layer upon layer of technology and biology so advanced it might as well have been magic. The crystalline fleet's ships responded, their structures resonating at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. Even our own fleet's systems began to behave strangely, as if awakening to some long-dormant protocol. "They left us away," Chen said, his eyes wide with realization. "Our ancestors, the original humans, they didn't just leave us warnings or tests. They left us a key." He pointed to where the arc of structures were beginning to align with both fleets, creating a pattern that seemed to echo the very structure of space-time itself. But using it would mean, Thompson's face hardened with determination, it would mean completing the transformation they began 5 million years ago. Not just humans becoming something new, but all of us together becoming something that has never existed before. She turned to the ambassador's glowing form. "Now you understand why your people were guided here. Why all of this had to happen exactly as it did." The wave of destruction grew larger in our displays, its approach bending light itself. We had minutes to make a choice that would affect not just our species, but the very future of consciousness in this galaxy. And as I watched Thompson reach for the command console, I realized that this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about evolution itself, about whether life in all its forms could come together to take the next great leap. The only question was, were we ready to pay the price? Thompson's hand hovered over the command console as the arc of structures began to pulse with ancient power. The wave of destruction was now visible to the naked eye, a wall of shifting energy that bent both light and space around it. In that moment, everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos changed. "The transformation protocol requires all 3 forms," Chen announced, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around us. "Wanderer, crystalline, and baseline human. A trinity of consciousness, just as our ancestors planned." The arc of structures were now forming a perfect dodecahedron around our combined fleets, each face glowing with symbols that seemed to write themselves into reality. The ambassador's crystalline form suddenly expanded, filling the bridge with prismatic light. "We understand now. Your ancestors, they weren't just preserving life, they were preparing it for this moment. Every test, every guide, every seemingly random encounter, it was all leading to this point." The Wanderer ships moved in perfect synchronization, their transformed surfaces now resembling liquid starlight. They weren't just ships anymore. They were conduits for something far more profound. As they aligned with the arc of structures, space itself began to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. "They knew," Thompson said, her finger finally pressing the command sequence. "They knew that survival wasn't about running from the wave or fighting it. It was about becoming something that could exist within it, understand it, perhaps even guide it." The symbols from the arc of structures began flowing into our ships, into our very bodies. I felt my consciousness expanding, touching minds both human and alien. The wave was seconds away when it happened. The Wanderer ships, our fleet, and the crystalline vessels began to merge, not physically, but on a quantum level. Consciousness flowed between us like water finding its own level. I was myself, but I was also them. We were separate, but we were becoming whole. But then something unexpected happened. As our merged consciousness touched the approaching wave, we didn't just survive it, we recognized it. This wasn't just a natural phenomenon or a cosmic filter. It was a message, written in the language of reality itself, from the very first humans who had ventured into the stars. "It's not a test," the ambassador's voice echoed through our shared consciousness. "It's an invitation." The wave enveloped us, but instead of destruction, we experienced transformation. Our ancestors hadn't just been preparing us to survive, they had been preparing us to join them. The wave was their way of reaching back through time, of ensuring that only those who truly understood the nature of existence could take the next step. As our consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of traditional space-time, we saw them, the original pioneers of humanity, not just surviving, but thriving in a layer of reality we had never imagined possible. They existed as pure thought, pure potential, shepherding the evolution of countless species across multiple galaxies. But even as we began to grasp the magnitude of this revelation, a new signal pulsed through our shared awareness. Something was stirring in the spaces between galaxies, something that even our transcendent ancestors had been watching with growing concern. Our transformation wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The real journey, we realized, was just starting. We had become what we needed to be to survive the wave, but that was only the first step. Now, as a unified consciousness of human, wanderer, and crystalline beings, we faced a universe far stranger and more wonderful than any of us had imagined. And somewhere, in the vast depths of intergalactic space, something ancient stirred, awakening to find that humanity, in all its diverse forms, had finally come of age. Thompson's last words through our shared consciousness echoed with both triumph and trepidation. We're not just the elder species anymore. We're the shepherds of what comes next. In the cycles that followed our transformation, we began to understand the true scope of our ancestors' vision. Our unified consciousness spread across the galaxy like a web of living light, each strand connecting different forms of life, different approaches to existence. The archives, once mere repositories of knowledge, became synapses in a vast neural network of shared experience and understanding. The crystalline beings, who had once fled in terror from the Wanderers, now worked alongside them to guide other emerging civilizations. Their unique ability to resonate with the fundamental frequencies of space-time complemented the Wanderers' mastery of void energy, while our baseline human perspective helped maintain a connection to the physical realm we'd all originated from. Through our expanded awareness, we watched as young species took their first steps into space. Some followed paths similar to our own, while others forged entirely new approaches to cosmic exploration. We guided them subtly, as our ancestors had guided us, leaving breadcrumbs of knowledge in ruins and artifacts, testing their wisdom and adaptation rather than their mere technological prowess. But it was the signal from deep space that occupied much of our attention. As our consciousness expanded, we began to detect patterns in the void between galaxies, evidence of something that had been watching the universe unfold since the first stars ignited. Our ancestors had sensed it too, which explained their urgent drive to prepare us for what was coming. It's not just one entity. Thompson's consciousness resonated through our shared awareness. It's an entire ecology of universe-spanning beings. Some so ancient they remember the formation of the first galaxies. The discovery humbled us, even in our transcendent state. We had thought ourselves the elder species, only to find we were still young in the grand scope of cosmic evolution. Yet our unique path, the decision to split our species into multiple forms, to guide rather than conquer, to preserve and nurture rather than simply survive, had prepared us for this revelation in ways we were only beginning to understand. The beings between the galaxies had been watching, waiting to see if any species would naturally evolve toward a similar understanding of existence. Through the archives, we learned that other civilizations had reached similar points of advancement, but they had always chosen isolation or dominance. We were the first to choose diversification and guidance, to deliberately split ourselves into multiple forms of existence while maintaining our fundamental connection to each other. The ambassador, their consciousness now a beautiful harmony within our shared awareness, often reflected on how their people's long flight from the Wanderers had actually been their salvation. We thought we were running from monsters, they mused, only to find we were being guided toward evolution itself. As we settled into our new role as shepherds of consciousness, we began preparing for the next great leap. The signals from intergalactic space weren't just observations. They were conversations, discussions about the nature of reality itself. We were being invited to join a community that existed on a scale we had only begun to comprehend. Admiral Chen's consciousness often resonated with a quote from humanity's past. We are not merely in the universe. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. Now, as we watched new civilizations rise among the stars, we understood the profound truth of those words. We were not just observers or guides. We were part of the universe's long journey toward understanding its own nature. And so, 5 million years after humanity first looked up at the stars and dreamed, we had become what our ancestors hoped we would be, not conquerors or rulers, but gardeners of consciousness, shepherds of evolution, guides for those who would follow in our footsteps. The story of humanity had become the story of life itself, endlessly adapting, eternally growing, forever reaching toward the next horizon. In the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient beings stirred with interest, watching as we took our first steps toward joining their cosmic community. The real adventure, we all knew, was just beginning.